Welcome back to Pop Dissected. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of Taylor Swift's re-recordings. Why do these matter, and why is it so significant Taylor is doing this? Some people still have a lot of questions about why it even matters that Taylor Swift is re-recording the first 6 of her 9 studio albums. I promise you, it's not about charts and it's not about notoriety. I think something like this can be very easily misconstrued. Of course, we understand the situation with her masters, which will be briefly overviewed for those who may need a refresher. If anything, these re-recordings serve as a symbolic movement of ownership and power on Taylor's part. So let's dive in, so we can understand why it matters that Taylor is doing this for herself. But before we begin, be sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell for more future content on all your favorite pop stars. Taylor Swift has just released her re-recording of Fearless, her second studio album, which originally released on November 11th of 2008. With 26 tracks, 12 solely being written by Taylor, this album strongly captures the same youthful adolescence we were introduced to back in 2008, albeit through a matured lens holding over a decade's worth of new experiences. So let's quickly recap the issue of Taylor Swift and her masters. Upon signing to Big Machine Records at 15, Taylor agreed to a record deal to put out 6 studio albums under Scott Borchetta, who at the time didn't even have a record label, but wanted Taylor to be his very first artist. Masters are the original recording of a piece of work, in which other copies can be replicated from, for physical distribution and placement on streaming services. Thus, to reproduce or use that owned work, one must get permission from the owner of the masters. Once her contract ended with Big Machine, where Taylor provided 80% of their revenue, she signed to Republic Records, in which her contract allowed her to own her masters to all her future work. Prior to leaving Big Machine, Taylor was offered another contract where she could earn 1 album back for every new one she put out. So she walked away. Following this, her masters were acquired by Scooter Braun through Scott Borchetta for $300 million. Then later by Shamrock Holdings for an additional $300 million. Taylor revealed for years she attempted to gain the masters to her music, but every effort was refused. There were issues of Taylor apparently not being able to perform her music at the 2019 AMAs, or use it in her documentary, Miss Americana. She did have an opportunity to bid for her music back, but only if she signed an NDA to never speak about Braun again. So once more, she walked away. Now, we must understand that many labels do own masters to their artists' work. Taylor's situation is not new, nor is it unheard of. However, the vast publicity it has brought on hasn't really been seen before. So is this shameless greed, or is this strictly a business move? One can say both. Taylor is extremely profitable, and in such a competitive industry, it makes sense someone would want an upper hand of sorts. But with fishy details and allegations of constant bullying, one can gather that this entire situation was an underhanded swindling to profit off the artist who kept an entire label in business. Seriously. The most striking evidence to support this being unprecedented greed is the unauthorized release of Taylor's Live from Clear Channel Stripped, which Taylor spoke out about, resulting in the effort absolutely tanking. With that, the man who initially signed Taylor Swift and was able to launch a successful label because of her, erased her ability to own her own art and handed it off to someone described as a manipulative bully. Long story short, Taylor announced in 2019 she would be re-recording her first 6 albums. However, Reputation likely won't be coming until 2023, due to there apparently needing to be a 5-year period after the album's initial release for it to be re-recorded. And here we are, with the first of 6 albums officially being re-recorded and released. So let's start by talking about several factors that make Taylor's efforts to re-record so important. But before we continue, I'd love for you to join my community of channel members, where you can receive special perks, exclusive badges, emojis, early access to videos, and my Pop Dissected podcast. I post 2 podcasts every weekend that range in a variety of topics. I hope to see you join. So, first and foremost, this type of issue is not something that is brand new. Artists such as Prince and Janet Jackson have also had conflicts with their labels when it came to owning their masters. While some artists have spoken on the matter, the force in which Taylor is addressing her issue serves as a big source of inspiration, I believe. This situation has allowed Taylor not only to stand up for herself, but also spread awareness for artists now and those who want to become professional singers. While music contracts may seem cut and dry on the surface, Taylor has proven how complicated these matters can get, and I believe this really serves as a cautionary tale for others to help them remain vigilant if they're intent on signing any sort of record deal. When you're young and starting out, it seems like a dream, but as we know, many labels have shown their greed and lack of respect for their artists. I think the next great point is about artistic integrity and ownership. Though Taylor is frustrated and likely heartbroken over this situation, she has only disavowed the masters being used for profit. She hasn't abandoned her first 6 albums, obviously, and we know she still has immense pride over that work and how it's been able to get her where she is today. This in itself teaches a really important lesson. Even if the future is unpredictable and your work, whatever it is you do professionally, can be taken from you, always remember where you came from. Without these albums, Taylor Swift would not have the career she has today. Her re-recordings serve not only as a love letter to herself and to her fans, but to those albums. By re-recording them, she and listeners are still able to celebrate those albums without supporting the people who bought them out from under her. Taylor, in a way, will end up owning her first 6 albums, even if they aren't the original masters. To say these re-recordings will be a one-to-one of the original counterparts isn't exactly true, however. In re-recording Fearless, Taylor explained how thoroughly every lyric, line, and melody was studied from the original album, striving to make a same but better version. To a casual listener, Fearless, Taylor's version, may appear as a copy and paste. However, die-hard Swifties have explored different sonic textures, arrangements, and inflections in Taylor's voice across the album. With claims about how she had been mistreated by Scooter Braun and Scott Borchetta, the icing on the cake for these re-recordings are the addition of From the Vault tracks, songs that didn't make the cut for the original album. Not only does this add further incentive to purchase and stream this music, we could be given an insight into songs that her label may have potentially trashed for one reason or another. Now, that is speculation. We can't be sure just yet if these songs were excluded because of Taylor's own decisions or her label's, but nonetheless, it offers a broader range of artistic vision that's been hidden for years. Fearless, Taylor's version, has received monumental acclaim. One powerful thing these re-recordings are able to do is put you back in a place and time where you first listened to the original album. Being able to relive your youth, remembering the times you cried to these songs, how you felt when you first heard a bridge, or how hard you danced to another track. Taylor will benefit in great ways because one primary strength in these re-recordings is the ability to play on nostalgia and remembrance. Additionally, Taylor is exemplifying how when one has their artistic vision and entire artistry compromised, you can have the choice to stand up for yourself and not be bullied into silence. She is devaluing her original works, and that in itself is a smarter business move than buying her original works. If the failure of the Clear Channel Stripped EP is any indication of how this will go, it wasn't the smartest move to purchase Taylor's masters to begin with. Back to what I stated at the start of the video, can we paint this act of re-recording her old masters as an effort to make more money, become more famous, and take up every spot on the chart? Well, I think that's a loaded question. That's really a double-edged sword at the end of the day. Though I support Taylor's efforts to re-record her old music, I can understand why some may have an issue with it. You have to think of all the possibilities if one were to be in this situation. Following the release of her first fully owned album, Lover, in 2019, Taylor put out 2 more incredibly successful efforts. With each of these 3 albums reaching successes in their own way, why couldn't Taylor just continue doing that? Her first 6 albums still exist, right? And I don't think that's an implausible move. It would make sense. But what would be the implications of that? To some, it may show her taking the high road and focusing on the present and the future, not getting caught up in the past. To others, though, it may show her as weak and not standing up for the art she had a huge hand in creating. She'd be leaving behind the legacy that pioneered Big Machine Records. Look, with these re-recordings, Taylor will be smashing the charts and raking in a ton of money. This is honestly a no-brainer, and it's not a shock, to be honest. But if that's what you're focusing on, isn't that the same mindset heralded by Scooter Braun and Scott Borchetta? Making money. Now, doesn't that seem a bit contradictory? Perhaps. Taylor's efforts, when all the claims and news headlines are stripped away, are about reclaiming what is hers. You can't expect someone who has created so much art and worked endlessly to just walk away from said art. Now that we have Fearless Taylor's version, we only need her debut, Speak Now, Red, 1989, and Reputation, which unfortunately will have to come a lot later down the line. If you've enjoyed this video on Taylor Swift, check out the description or click on the info card for more videos like these. Do you support Taylor Swift in her effort to re-record all her older music? Or does anything about it raise questions in your mind? Let's discuss it in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'd like to shout out my Pop Icon Status channel members: Carl Dillinson, Matthew Quigley, Gerard Lang, Daniel Barron, Jalen Heater, Tyler Salvetti, Nicole Sherman, and Crystalline Gregory. Thank you all so much for your support. I hope those watching also join to become channel members. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell for more future content on all your favorite pop stars.